gearheads. Welcome to your Sunday night with Speed City. It's John Massengale, and I'm in the studio in Austin, Texas. I've got Mr. Bob Varsha joining us. He's trying to work out a little technical glitch. He's working on that as we speak. But we got lots of good stuff to talk about tonight. We have some really cool guests. I got to catch up with the Daytona GTP pole sitter, Tom Blomquist, right afterwards, actually, right after he won that pole at that crazy, last second lap. And he's going to, we got an interview with him. We're going to play here in a few minutes. We got lots of Formula One discussion we're going to talk about tonight. And we also have a young American driver, David Morales, who's down in New Zealand. He's going to join us here in just a few minutes down there at the Toyota Series and the new Formula Regional Oceania Series down there. And yeah, we got lots to talk about. Mr. Varsha, how are you?
I'm doing great. I apologize for the computer glitches here. I tried to reboot the machine and it just takes longer than I would like to percolate, but I'm doing great. And the season's getting started. The Monte Carlo Rally is in the books. The Rolex is about to start. It's an exciting time right now, and it only gets better from here.
I know. Here we are in the middle of off season, and it's super exciting. And by the way, you sound great and you look great. We've got a picture of you up. I think it's about 10 years ago, Bob. You look fantastic.
Yeah, right. I spent a lot of time primping to be ready for my close-up, Mr. Demit.
Well, let's start off with some.
Anyway, yeah, good times.
Yeah, let's start off with some Formula One stories because we've got a couple things going on. One, I want to start with the new calendar update because officially the Chinese Grand Prix is not going to happen. So it looks like we have a firmed up calendar. I guess that doesn't really surprise any of us, does it?
Well, I really kind of thought that they'd try to close that huge hole of however many weeks, 4 weeks between events as a result of China dropping out. And I think they had some options in that part of the world, but I guess they just couldn't get the deal done, which is really kind of a shame. Anybody who promotes motorsports or any form of entertainment for that matter knows you've got to be in front of people in order to keep up the momentum of your season. And that's just not going to happen. It's a shame they couldn't put China back on the schedule. It's a fascinating place in Shanghai, interesting racetrack to be sure. But no can do. So here
Nope.
we go. We'll have that big hole after the opening rounds of the championship, and then we'll wait until they pick it up again.
No, that's a good point about a big gap there between uh, April 2nd, Australia, and April 30th, Azerbaijan and Baku. So that is a big one. But it was nice to see the Vegas race show up there, second to the last race of the season, the penultimate round, November 18th for Vegas. And of course, Miami still on May 7th. And Coda back in our usual little spot there in late October, October 22nd, with Mexico right behind it. But yeah, that is a bummer about the hole there. But hey, speaking of Miami, did you see the story about how much work Miami's going to do between right now, probably on the track surface and the changes they're making? Bob, did you see all that?
Yeah, I did, and I welcome it. Obviously, the drivers wanted changes to the racetrack, particularly that fiddly bit down where they go underneath the interstate and then down the long high-speed backstretch. So they get rid of the bumps, and that's good. But they'd really like a more challenging corner right there. And at least for now, they're not going to get it. As far as putting the paddock inside the football stadium, I think that's a brilliant idea because, as you and I both know, trying to walk around amongst that crowd between the paddock and the garages last year at Miami, I mean, it's just ridiculous trying to find anybody or get a moment
Yeah.
of quiet to do an interview or whatever. So, I think if they put the paddock on the infield and control the crowds a little bit, I think it'll be better for everyone involved. Plus, it'll make for some terrific selfies in Hard Rock Stadium.
Yeah. Yeah, I see they've got the renderings up on the Miami GP website with all the team village inside the stadium. That's pretty cool. That'll be fun to go check that out because you're right. It was pretty crazy last year. But I did see it was Tilka, the same guys that did Circuit of the Americas that are doing the track resurface. And you're right. That's the first thing I look for is to see if they made any changes to the layout. and did not see any of that. But yeah, that's good. I'm glad that they're spending some money and feeling like that's going to be a good investment for them. So that was a good to see. You had a story you put in here, Bob, about major personnel changes at the top of the FIA Formula One hierarchy. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting situation. The new president, Mohammed bin Sulayem, um, began an investigation as soon as he came on board about efficiencies within the organization. And certainly, I think it was perhaps ripple from the unhappy finish to the 2021 season in Abu Dhabi. It was announced previously that the race director, Hans Vidic, will be back, although he took some criticism last year. And as we know, Eduardo Freitas, the who doubles up on the World Endurance Championship, he was moved out of the Formula One race director's seat after the events on that rainy weekend in Suzuka, Japan. But in addition, they've sort of reorganized the way the FIA looks at Formula One and pulls its rules together. And the names of the people involved probably don't resonate with the average Formula One fan. Guys like Tim Goss and Steve Nielsen and Nicholas Tombazis. These guys all have glittering resumes within the sport, and they've all been assigned to a much more simplified chain of command. But I think it's interesting. For me, the bottom line is that the president, Ben Sulayem, has taken it upon himself to make these changes. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if it's a huge political game. I mean, he was able to move aside perhaps some of the people with whom he disagreed, put his people in place. We all know the new broom sweeps clean. And there may be a touch of that here. So I'm going to be watching closely to see if we see some stories involving rules and operations and finance and all of that sort of thing down the road, now that the president of the FIA has his people in place to start the season.
Yeah, that's a good point. Everybody brings in their team, right? So
Right.
that will be interesting to watch. I just talked. By the way, Jonathan Green's not with us because he's down in New Zealand at that Toyota Formula Oceania series, and he and I were talking very briefly when we had a really bad connection. But he was asking, "Hey, is anything new on Andretti?" And I said, "Not really. It's been a pretty quiet week." But I do have one little thought about Andretti. Um, and also, I'm actually going to save it for later in the show because it has to do with the new Corvette E-Ray that was announced this week. And man, that's been really cool to watch the new C8 progression. Normally we have to wait so long for all these iterations between the cars, but clearly when they designed the Corvette C8, they designed it with the uh, the ability to add hybrid and all the other things that they're adding, the Z06, all those in mind. So it's really cool. So I'll tie that in.
Yeah, isn't that a piece of work? Yeah.
It's really, really. I'm going to get into I'm going to geek out on it. Hey, look, we're talking sports cars tonight anyway with Daytona, so I want to geek out on some of that because
Right.
it's really cool, and I want to geek out on some of the GTP hybrids in Daytona. But let's go ahead.
0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
Yes, faster than the Z06. Not quite
Oh my gosh.
Tesla plaid, but quite reproducible, which I'm sure is not as much in a Tesla plaid. But well, Bob, let's get a quick break in because we have that young driver, David Morales, on hold from New Zealand, going to join us, and we're going to talk to him. And then in the next segment, we're going to play that interview we did with Tom Blomquist. So stick with us, and we'll be back after a short break. All right, we're live on YouTube. Waiting for the young David Morales to come on, a young American down there.
Hello, YouTubers. Thanks for stopping in.
Yeah, what do we got? Let me look at YouTube. See if we got any comments out there.
Well, what do you think, John? I want to know how much of the Rolex are you going to watch? You're going to stay up for the whole 24?
You know what? I watch a lot of it, Bob. I don't go the whole 24, but my son's racing. They got the only McLaren team this year. They only in 61 cars are the only McLaren, the Optimum rated motorsport team. So my son's a mechanic. So
Yep.
yes, I will be watching. They qualified 6th today in the
Uh-huh.
GTD. And so yes, Joe of Oyster Bay says, "Hey, Bob."
I thought it was really interesting that and excuse me if I'm stepping on you, John, because sometimes I can't be sure whether you're still there or not with this computer problem I'm having. But they mixed up all of the GT cars, the pros with the big
Yeah,
factory support, as well as the regular GTD. And amazingly enough, 3 of the GTD cars, ostensibly the slowest cars in the
yeah.
field, out qualified the GTD Pro, platinum
Here we go.
all
Hello
galaxy
to everyone,
lineup.
this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back to your Sunday night with Speed City, and we are about to welcome our next guest, our first guest of the night. Very excited. We have a young American driver down in New Zealand for the Toyota Series, David Morales. David, welcome to Speed City.
Hey, hi. Nice to meet you guys. It's really, really happy to be here.
Well, excited to meet you. It looks like you're out in the middle of nowhere out in New Zealand. Where are you right now?
I'm in Queenstown, which is like the best part of New Zealand for me personally. At least, I mean, I haven't seen much, but like it's really, I don't know if you
Oh
can
yeah,
see, but it's really nice out here.
that's
So
gorgeous.
it's lovely, 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 lovely. So
Huh.
really enjoying it.
Well, David, why don't you give everybody a little bit of background because I'll catch them up really quick. It looks like you've done really well down in New Zealand. You had 1 DNF, which that hurts a lot in the standings, so it dropped you down a little bit. But oh, you've had 2 now?
Yeah, it's actually I brought my friend with me. It's his name, he's a rock, okay? And this rock decided to go inside of my car through the side pod, break
Wow.
2 ECUs, and then give me another DNF. I'm thankful for the rock.
Oh my gosh.
Unlucky there.
You're
But
lucky it
yeah,
didn't hit you. That's pretty scary.
yeah, yeah.
Well, give everybody a little background on you because anytime you got Americans in a series like that down in New Zealand where a lot of Formula One drivers and other big name drivers have come through, it's exciting. So tell us about you.
Always need to represent America for sure. So I am a Formula 3 driver, well, Formula Regional driver, doing Formula Regional Oceania. My name is David Morales, and I've been racing for cars 3 years now, but since my entire life, basically since I was like 4, I started go-karting, and ever since then just kept going and going and going. So it's been my entire life. And this year, after Formula Regional Oceania, I'm going to do Great Britain F3, and that's what we're looking at. So yeah.
Well, I know I mentioned the worst part of what you have done down in New Zealand, but tell us about the good stuff. You've had some, you're doing really well down there because even with those DNFs, you're still, reasonable in the standings.
It's not where we would want it to be, honestly, but I think with the prep that we had coming into Daytona and all that, it's just honestly for me it's kind of negative to look at the standings right now because I know 100% I'm going to bounce back. I think Daytona was just one of those things where it wouldn't click. It just wouldn't come at me. I couldn't grasp it in a way and in time as quick as everybody else did. And that kind of shows me my weaknesses and where I need to really, really improve. So, and I'm going to take all of that to the next circuit, Manfield, and just apply everything that I've learned, because it's good. It's good that I had a terrible weekend because now I've got lessons to learn and just ingest that. So that's it.
Well, that's certainly glass half full attitude. I like that. Mr. Varsha, what do you
Yeah.
think about this young man down there in New Zealand trying to make a name for himself, isn't he?
And that's exactly the point of a series like this. I saw in one of the press releases that the series sort of describes itself like Major League Baseball winter ball. The main season of the summertime here in the Northern Hemisphere has yet to start up. So why not go to the Southern Hemisphere and, and race and learn, as David was just pointing out. And I think it's a great opportunity for them. What, about 16 cars in the series, which is a good sized field. Not likely you'll be back to New Zealand, I suppose, in your professional career, except for some fun racing. So learning the tracks maybe isn't as much of an advantage as it would be if you were racing in Europe. But you still have plenty of time, and it sounds like you've got a great plan out there.
Yeah.
Can I ask you who's helping you direct your career? Do you have representation, or is it a
I
family
have.
thing? Or
Well, in the beginning, it was my dad, but now that, because I love him so much, but sometimes you need a bit more direction. And I'm very
sure,
thankful for 29 Motors. I mean, well, 29 management team. So I have my manager Luke with me all the time, and he's kind of been directing me on where to go and how to proceed. So because I don't really know how to put it. So it's just, yeah, I've got Luke, my manager, who's kind of directing me and putting me where I have to be. So yeah.
Well, that's great.
well, good.
Jonathan speaks highly of him, and I know Jonathan's down there doing that with you. But hey, I did
Yeah.
notice that you are from Florida, David. Do you have
Yes.
you have, are you a regular participant or not participant, a viewer of the Rolex 24 at Daytona down in your neck of the woods down there?
Unfortunately, I am a little bit too south to make it to the Daytona. Sometimes it's like a 4-hour drive or 3-hour drive or something like that for me, because I live in just north of Miami in Fort Lauderdale. So it is quite a while drive, but I do watch it. I do watch it online. But never ever have I been able to make it there in person. So
Well, let's talk about
That's interesting.
yeah, let's talk about what's going on down in New Zealand. We talked about why the series is important, but let's talk about a little bit of the nuts and bolts about exactly what you hope to get out of this. I mean, it's kind of like Jonathan puts it, you're squeezing a whole season into what, 5 weeks, something like that?
yeah. Um, so I think just the main focus primarily is because this is a winter series, and I think for a lot of drivers, when you look at a winter series, obviously, you want to win it, you want to be the best, you want this or that. But for me, it's mainly just about learning like where I can be better as a driver, learning how to be better, and how to, perfect my craft. Because this is really the point of TRS, and that's, what they, or C2 Frock, I should say. That's kind of what they also promote too, is the goal is to learn and to be better as a driver. So that's how it really is. And it's so amazing out here, actually. It's because of M2, the team that I'm currently racing with. It's just the way that it kind of builds as a team, and you guys all kind of mold together, because you have to go really, really fast. It's a race weekend every week. So you never have time to rest. You never, like, you have a Monday and a Tuesday, but you're right back at the racetrack on Wednesday for a track walk ready to go. So you never really have any time to relax. So you just kind of grow with everybody really, really quickly. So it's really, really nice the way that they have it all set up here. It's amazing.
Mm. Well, what about long-term goals?
IndyCar, or, if possible by, some grace, Formula One, but IndyCar is definitely the goal for now. So yeah.
Yeah, I think
What are
that's
they putting in the water at Fort Lauderdale right now? I
yeah.
mean, Logan Sargent's from Fort Lauderdale, right? He's going to Williams Formula
Yeah.
One. Here you are, and I'm sure there's probably others in that area that you've raced with since karts or whatever. What's going on in Fort Lauderdale? It sounds like quite the hot spot.
I think it's just kind of like a Florida thing, especially South Florida. There's a lot of drivers that just like pop up out of nowhere and go. It's man, I keep forgetting. We have like 2 Lamborghini factory drivers down there. I'm forgetting his name, but like we have a lot of talent in South Florida because of Scusa and the Florida Winter Tour, and the karting there is really, really, really intense. So it kind of molds and brings it.
Yeah, there's a lot of motorsport activity in Florida for sure. So it doesn't surprise me. Was your dad into motorsports?
My dad, he was never really well, he loved cars and he loved Formula One, but he was a street racer when he was a kid. So then he was just like, you know what? I want the real thing. So then I came along and I became the real thing. So that's kind of how he was. He was never really connected to motorsport other than, just a regular kind of thing. So he just street raced. Yeah.
Well, at TRS, you talked about that it's essentially a Formula 3 car, and I mean that's a big step from where you've come through. So you mentioned early on in the show your immediate next steps, but talk about the next year or two or three. What does that look like, you think?
So I think, let's say we do really, really well in TRS. Let's not, put anything out there. Okay. Let's say top three, really, really happy with that result. Then, we move on and then we go into GB3 and then we do the same thing in Great Britain F3. Then I think that would, I have two roads that I'd either go down, hopefully, if possible, FIA, F3, just to, pursue my Formula career a little bit more in Europe. But if not, then definitely go back to America and do Indy Pro. Indy Pro. So
yep,
that's for next year, basically.
And you guys can get super license points down there, of course. That always is going to look good on a resume.
18 points. So I think it's 18. Yeah, 18. So that's really, really good.
Yep. Well, what about all the folks around you? Are you guys getting to know each other? Are you make some friends down there as well?
Yeah. Actually, I'm great friends with Charlie Verts. He's the best. He's so it's one of the other drivers that I'm racing with right now. But apart from racing, just to take that out, he's like a mountain goat. Me and him actually went on a hike today, and it is ridiculous the amount of endurance this guy has. I swear. But that's just about Charlie. Really, he's a really good friend of mine in the series, and a co-driver also. And then in M2, I have my engineer, and I got really, really close with my engineer because the way that they kind of want you to be, at least our team manager, he really wants everybody, everybody's engineer and your mechanics to all be kind of really, really close together. And so I've had a night out with my mechanics, just with them and my engineers, really, really, really just all connecting. And it's just it's amazing. It's really it's really good.
So, David, I'm looking at the standings on the website. It says you're currently in second. Is that not been updated yet?
No, it's not been updated. We are sadly.
I thought that did have. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well, hey, David, it sounds like you've got a real future plan for yourself, but suppose out of left field, somebody, maybe a Toyota connection, maybe somebody elsewhere in the Oceania or Asian series say, hey, we got a seat for you, funded. How about racing, whatever, Super GT, whatever it turns out to be in Japan or whatnot. Would you listen to a potentially different career path if it was presented to you?
Yes. After this year, because I've kind of already signed all the contracts, but after this year, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely. If the opportunity arose, 100%, I jump at it. So, because,
Well, David, we sure appreciate you coming on. And of course, everybody will be watching your career. And we want to wish you the best of luck in the remaining part of the series down in New Zealand there. And we'll be keeping an eye on you. So, but why don't you let everybody know how they can follow you on social media or website or whatever you want?
It is, my Instagram is David Morales Racing. That's it. So definitely follow David Morales Racing, and thank you guys for having me on. Really, really enjoyed this talk. So thank you guys.
All right, David. Good luck, buddy. We'll keep an eye on you. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
So long.
All right, we're making sure we follow all these young Americans in all the any possible series. What really makes me really pay attention to the series down there that Toyota puts on is, of course, Jonathan interviewing Lando Norris a few years ago, and I think it was Lance Stroll, and he was like, "Some of these kids look really good," and so I've paid very close attention since that time. But hey, Bob, you know what? Let's get a sneak break in because we got lots more stories. But coming up next, we have an interview that we did with the pole sitter, Tom Blomquist, and down in Daytona in the new GTB class. So stick with us after the break. You're listening to Speed City. Back after these. That's some groovy break music there, Casey. Kevin Kelly on YouTube says, I hope he doesn't have the same loan shark manager as Nick DeVries. Bob, I don't know if you heard me a while ago, but Joe of Oyster Bay on YouTube says, "Hey, Bob." Let's see what else we got coming up, Bob. We got the interview with Tom Blomquist, and definitely want to talk some Daytona. I got to watch virtually all of the coverage today on Peacock. On the Peacock. Did you subscribe?
Seriously?
Yes.
Yeah, I can watch that channel.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope I'm not messing up the show too much with this ridiculous Wi-Fi problem.
No, it's just it's honestly it's just a little distracting. I feel a little bit just distracted tonight. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I definitely feel a little off my game a little bit. Let's see what else we got. I'm excited to talk about further about the Corvette stuff.
Yeah, by all means.
And I definitely want to tell everybody, especially if you're on the YouTube viewers, if you haven't watched Marshall Pruitt's series on the new GTP cars, you got to check it out on the Racer channel on YouTube. He's done a little segment on each one of the GTP cars, all the way from Acura, Cadillac, Porsche, and BMW, and it's really fascinating about how they all use a different drivetrain. I mean, we touched on that last week, but here we go, coming back.
Hi, this is Karun Chandok, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back to your Sunday night with Speed City. It's John Massengale with Bob Varsha. And Bob, I was talking about it during the break, but I got to watch all the coverage today from the Roar at Daytona, and it was a blast, and some great racing. And the new GTP cars, of course, drawing a lot of attention from the commentators just because we got this new hybrid system. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, some of the different technologies and how all that works. But I want to start with the interview that I did with Tom Blomquist, because he had a fantastic last second lap to take the pole, and it was really exciting to talk to him. So let's hear from Tom Blomquist.
Howdy.
Hey, howdy, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Thank you for that good old Texan howdy there.
You like it?
Hey, man, congratulations. What a fantastic day you must be having.
Yeah, definitely feeling good right now. Yeah, what a fantastic way to kick off this new, GTP era. And, I can't really, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for the fantastic job that, Acura, HPD and Oracle have done in building this car. And then, handing it over to, MSR and, also WTR, because this was a team effort. Yeah, so obviously it's been a cool day to, have a few, have some bragging rights, let's say, for a few more days before, the serious business happens next Saturday.
Yeah, you got a week to enjoy that. But man, what about that one lap? Just jump out there and kill it in one lap. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was, that was special, I guess. That was, yeah, I mean, I tend to, fancy myself in qualifying, but I would say that was one of the harder ones I've had to do in the past, is because, when you're coming out, you don't even have the tires really up to temperature, and I kind of had to wing that one a little bit. But yeah, what made my life easier was that, this car's been working really well every time we've been out on track, all weekend long. So, to have the confidence that the car, if I push it to the limit, the car's going to do what I tell it to do, obviously made my life a little bit easier there. But yeah, that was a hairy moment, hairy session. There's a lot of nerves when that red flag came out. I was like, no, we've messed it up. We're not going to get a chance. But and even still, when I was going out for one lap, I was like, how am I supposed to do this? How is this going to work out? Like, incredible.
Yeah, what was it? 83 hundredths of a second ahead of
Yeah,
NASA.
and I nearly messed it up big time. I went for the bus stop completely sideways. So yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, well, what about this? I mean, what a great way to kick off this new era with these new GTP hybrids. I mean, there's been so much talk about this new car, but I think about all the stuff you guys got to learn. It's like you're starting over almost with this new powertrain and all the new things to think about.
Yeah, we've obviously, in the years gone past, dealing with something that's, and when you compare it to this new car, almost like a dinosaur, and this thing is so much more advanced. We need so much more manpower to operate the thing. It's like a supercomputer, and it's been fun. I've really enjoyed the development and understanding, the car and how to work with the engineers to extract performance from the car. They've done a fantastic job. We have such a good car. The fundamentals are there. The potential is really there for us to have a great season. But it's been really exciting to have, something that's so modern and kind of, there's so much more stuff for us as drivers that we can control and change within the cockpit to help us and find performance and, adjust settings, the balance of the car. And that's really exciting. That's cool. But you need to know what you're doing. You need to understand the car. You need to understand how the tools work. And yeah, you can really find ways to extract, more performance.
Yeah. So you guys have quite a bit of control as the driver on the wheel there.
Yeah, we can control now a lot more things, especially with the braking. We've always we've got traction control still on these cars, but you can tune that. But it's more like the braking and the entry phase to the corner. We have tools to help us, if we're coming in, if it need more turn or if we need the opposite, there's things that we can kind of do to manipulate that.
Anything you can do with the hybrid, with the electric side of it? Can you like a boost or anything like that?
Well, but we don't have, we have the power we have. We kind of integrate that into the motor to kind of help us on the exit of the corners, to have a smoother power delivery. So that's how we integrate the MGU, the electric, hybrid power on the, the acceleration phase. But we also use that in the opposite direction on the braking phase, and that has a huge impact on the diff, on the braking, and all that stuff. So it's really a powerful tool now. The hybrid, having that hybrid element, enables us to have so much more control over, some of the systems.
Well, what a great team with Meyer Shank and you went Acura, and I'm thinking about. I mean, the competition you guys have, we're talking Porsche, BMW, Cadillac. I mean, for you guys to jump out and look so impressive, really, honestly, all weekend, I mean, you just got to feel great about that.
Yeah, it's such a great morale boost for the team, for the boys and girls that have been, working their backsides off. Not only me, not only our team, HPD, Acura, everyone who's put the hard, graft into this project. Those are the ones that should be, most proud of what they've done, not me.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows it's a massive team sport. Yes, you're the face of it, and you did something amazing today, but it is such a big team sport, and I know that there's a whole bunch of people behind the scenes.
Yeah, there's so many people that should be really, really proud of what they've achieved, with this car, because we haven't had the car long. This thing hit the ground running in proper anger in like September, October. So, it's really a testament to all their homework and what they've been able to achieve is fantastic. So I'm excited to be a part of the group and obviously carry the flag and give the guys also things to smile about, like times like today. So yeah, it's been great.
Well, speaking of homework, you've got a week now. What does this next week look like for you and for everybody else?
Yeah, so I'm gonna head back, relax for a few days now, reset, recharge the batteries, because yeah, we have a busy, hectic, next weekend, right? So I think now the guys got to analyze, go through all the final details, trying to understand the car, any little issues that might, cause us concern in the race, because now it's all about reliability. We know we've got a good car, but the reliability now is crucial. So we need to, we need to work through all that, like anything, all the final small bits where it comes to, driver changes, this, that, making sure, the driver comfort's sorted, like all the little bits and bobs. But for me, I'm going to, go back, relax for a few days, recharge my batteries, and then, come back and, ready to go into battle.
Yeah, I bet those engineers and everybody are going to be downloading data and comparing, looking at everything, and trying to make sure that, like you said, that at this point it is going to be reliability. But that's got to be a huge task ahead of those guys too. But well, Tom, thank you so much for joining us on Speed City. Congratulations for today. It was really fun to watch that today, and congratulations. We
Thank
really
you so much.
appreciate
I
it.
really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for
All
having
right,
me.
thanks.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah, he was a heck of a nice guy, Bob. I would have had you on that interview, but they literally the IMSA guys texted me and said he can do a Zoom right now if you can do it. So I just ran out to the studio and jumped on right then. But he's a nice guy and well, obviously clearly a fantastic driver, last year's champion. So but it was
Yeah.
it was fun to watch that lap, man, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I love watching drivers under pressure like that. Keep in mind, he came through, but a lot of other guys were going just about as fast as he was. And they all had that same issue. When the Porsche 963 went off, brought out the red flag, they only get 15 minutes total to qualify. And he had to go out there and put down one push lap and make it work. I'm sure the tires weren't where he wanted them. And the line was probably interesting. I think it was Sebastian Bourdais afterwards who said, that all of a sudden everybody seemed to have more grip in qualifying. So I'm telling you, this race is going to be absolutely spectacular. And I got to know Tom Blomquist a little bit a few years ago in Formula E. He was driving for Michael Andretti. He is a great guy, son of the legendary rally superstar Stig Blomquist. And listening to him talk about all the drivers and all that they have to do. I mean, he sounded energized by the fact that I've got this great tool that I can play with. And your questions were spot on. I mean, he is really engaged in this thing. And I saw somebody commenting recently that, well, geez, there aren't very many Americans sitting in those seats. Well, this is the sharp end of the spear. You want really experienced guys in these cars because they have so many things they can do. Not that there aren't Americans out there who could do it, but some of these European guys who've been in the World Endurance Championship and so forth, they probably have a leg up in terms of technology over the American drivers, and hopefully that'll change, and we'll see more Americans in these top level seats. But boy, oh boy, it's going to be spectacular on next Saturday. I almost said Sunday, but it's a 24-hour race.
It's both.
So, oh man, yeah, I'm just the hair standing up on my arms as I'm thinking about it. I'm really going to not be in there this year, but go get them, boys.
I'm the same way, Bob. I'm excited. I like to get as many screens as I possibly can. I usually have a phone and a laptop. Phone checking social, laptop doing multiple different camera angles, and then the big screen going. The hard part is taking over the entire living room from the wife, but I am definitely looking forward to it as well. I was just looking down
business.
I was just looking down the qualifying results. Of course, there's so many familiar names, right? I mean, it's crazy how many huge names that are in this, and I'm not even going to try to touch on all those. I'm just going to look at some of the guys that did well. Ben Keating, Texan, who's been on the show. In fact, he was on the show not long ago. He took the pole in LMP2 again. I think I saw the 4th year in a row that he's taken pole in LMP2. It seems like not that long ago that he moved up to LMP2, but I guess he's done it 4 years in a row now. And our friend George Kurtz from CrowdStrike, he qualified 5th in LMP2, and in fact, all of the times are super tight in LMP2 as you'd expect. But then going down to LMP3, Wilsey, Barbosa, Surfai, I can't even say that name right, sorry. But those guys in the Sean Check Motorsports took the pole, and then Andretti in 2nd in LMP3. And let's see, I've just some other names that jumped out at me earlier. It was fascinating to see the difference between GTD Pro and GTD, because like you said early in the show, the fastest cars were not in GTD. And of course, the cars are the same. And it used to be the driver differences made up a bunch of this, but I thought that was interesting to see as well, and just going down that list too. My friends at Inception are in sixth, but what else from today jumped out at you, Bob?
Well, gosh, I'm thinking back when I first went to Daytona for this race. We had guys like AJ Foyt and Darrell Waltrip and stars from NASCAR, stars from IndyCar, stars from Europe. The occasional young driver who's making his way up the ladder. I mean, it was just such a spectacular time, and I'm sure it's going to be that way again. I have to say, from the time the original prototype changes were instituted, the Daytona prototypes, gosh, how long ago was that? A decade? I mean, those boxes were beautiful only to their mothers, but to see what they've come to now with these spectacularly
High-tech.
sleek, colorful, high-tech cars, still driven by the best in the world across all these different forms of motorsport. But boy, Daytona is taking a step up this year. They're now on a level footing with the ACO and Le Mans, so a lot of the guys you'll be seeing this weekend will probably be at La Sarthe in June. I'm just looking forward to a race where you have to stay out of the pits. If you have to pit for any length of time, you're in big trouble. That's always been the case, but never more so than the gaps we've seen. That's probably the thing that I remember most from qualifying today was how close these cars all are. That's a big tip of the hat to IMSA with their balance of performance to get all these manufacturers and all these different types of engines and drive lines and car aero specs and so forth, and make them all competitive with one another.
Yeah.
So it really is down to the drivers and the crews to win.
A great example of that, Bob, is this GTP class that we've been talking about. I'm just going to run down the different manufacturers and the different drivetrains because it's really fascinating. And then I wouldn't want to have the balance of performance job either because the Acura is a 2.4 liter twin turbo. The BMW is a 4-liter twin turbo V8 with an 8,200 RPM red line. The Cadillac's a 5.5 liter naturally aspirated with, I think, the highest red line at 8,600, which I guess would make sense, naturally aspirated, but it's also the largest. And by the way, that Cadillac engine, if I'm not mistaken, is basically the same engine that they've been running in the DPI, but it's also either the cousin or highly related to the new Z06 because it's dual overhead cam. It's not like an LS based or whatever, but it's dual overhead cam. Clearly at 8,600 RPMs, it likes to rev. So, but that one is highly related, I think, to the Z06. And I say I think because I don't think anybody knows because Cadillac's not really being a lot public with that. And then, of course, the last one is the Porsche 963. That's also a V8, but it's a 4.6 liter twin turbo. Have all these different recipes to how to do this. And of course, they all bolt up to the spec hybrid system that adds the same amount of power across the board. But can you imagine all of that, Bob? They have all those different characteristics and strengths and weaknesses and then balance of performance on top of that. So it's really fun to watch. And I love what you said about how these cars are really, I mean, imagine how thinking about this technology, just comparing this to like even Formula One a decade ago, which, you think a decade, but still Formula One's so high up. It's really cool to think about the level of technology we're getting in, and what seems like kind of just regular sports car racing, but at the highest class, it's really awesome. And a story that I put in that I just saw that Paul Bryan, who's a regular listener, and he put in about it was fun to see Ford CEO Jim Farley as a pro driver in a Mustang GT4 in the Rolex support races. That, he says, great guy who always picks up the dinner tab. That was definitely on my list to talk about. And I was telling my son today, I was like about Jim Farley, and I think one of the commentators said Chris Farley, and it's crazy for me to think,
really.
yeah, that's his brother, and it's still crazy to me that Chris Farley one of my favorites from back in the day, who was just such a goofball that his brother is now the CEO of Ford. But that was really fun to see him, and I love the fact that the CEO of Ford is not just a car guy but a racer too. That's cool, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's got a Cobra. He's got some really, really cool cars. Vintage races a lot. When was the last time you saw a giant automaker CEO out there driving? Well, not his own product in contemporary terms, but driving for the brand,
Yeah.
driving just for the pure joy of it. And actually, I think this is if he's going to race as a pro this weekend, that'll be the first time. I don't think he's done that before. But he is a great guy, great to talk to, loves to talk about cars, follows racing. Yeah, Jim Farley's the real deal.
One Rolex story. Kevin Magnussen, of course, not racing due to that hand surgery. That was a bummer to see him not there. But
Yeah, that sucks. Hmm.
yeah. And you know what? Let's go ahead and get our last break in. When we come back, I'm going to tie a few of these stories together. We have a couple more F1 things we want to talk about as well. And I'll tie in that Corvette story that I was talking about earlier. Listen to Sunday Night with Speed City back after this.
Hey, Casey, let me in. I think I'm working.
All right. What's that, Bob? You got something for Casey?
I think my Zoom is working. Why don't you let me in?
Oh, on your laptop? Cool.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry,
folks. This is housekeeping we're doing here.
That's all right. It's the behind the curtain, Bob. That's what it is.
Yeah, right.
Kevin Kelly says the Acura V6 10,000 RPMs. Kevin, I know Kevin really well. I don't think that's right. I think they have well, maybe it is, but I know there's a cap in the new GTP, and I thought that cap was like 9,000, but I guess it makes sense that the Acura is going to spin up the highest.
It depends. That's revs are one of the matrices
Yeah.
that they use in the BOP process. They use weight, they use revs, and gosh, what else? The size of the fuel tank, and so on, to equalize performance in terms of the ultimate lap time. So some guys will rev higher than others. You've got normally aspirated cars, you've got turbocharged cars.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Max Verstappen and bringing us back from break, and the rumors, the little stories about his early retirement, like I don't think immediate, but not having this crazy long career that he could have because he started so young, are still percolating out there. We talked about it last week. There's nothing new. It's just I saw a few more people talking about it. That's really fascinating. But hey, when we went to break, I said I wanted to talk about the new Corvette E-Ray, the hybrid, because I was going to tie it into Andretti. And okay, this may be a bit of a stretch, but when I heard this, when I was thinking about all the technology that's gone into it, it made me think about the whole Andretti Formula One thing with GM and Cadillac, and how at the beginning, GM and Cadillac are not going to come in and make their own power unit. They're going to use somebody else's. And we talked about that last week, possibly Honda or Renault. But it made me think about the deal that GM signed with Honda about electric cars and how Formula One's going more electric. But it just made me think about the chops, the engineering chops that GM does bring to the table. I mean, look, it's a massive company and with massive resources and tons of money. And so this new E-Ray it's a really fascinating layout in this Corvette because it's got the base engine out of the base C8, which makes 495 horsepower, plus another 160 horsepower from an electric motor in the front end of this car, giving it all-wheel drive. And I was reading about that they're not really tied together in maybe a traditional all-wheel drive sense. But the fact that they made all this technology work seamlessly, and this car is going to be out next year, if I'm not mistaken. And I was just blown away. I was like, what an amazing car. Like you said early in the show, Bob, 0 to 60, 2.5 seconds. And first all-wheel drive Corvette ever, of course. First hybrid Corvette ever, of course. I like the fact that it has and all this is, I'm just reading this out, I'm not reading it, I'm doing this out of memory because I was fascinated by it, but I think it'll go up to like 45 miles an hour for a very short period. But one of the most fascinating pieces of technology that
Just on electricity, you mean?
yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
just on electricity. But one of the most fascinating parts was how they said how quickly this car will recharge. They said that the regen, that they don't expect uh, any issues with running low on the battery, because they said it can, with just normal driving, can fill up the battery. One, because it's small, but it dumps so much regen power back into the battery. And I think that's one of the big leaps in EV technology right now, is the fact that they're making these cars so quick to recharge via regen and recharge via the chargers, because they're saying that this new Corvette doesn't even, it's not a plug-in hybrid at all. They said it's not an issue. They're just going to use the engine to charge it, and then the regen engine to top it off if you need to. So all that technology makes me, proud that it's an American company doing this. I mean, and think about that car. I mean, the only hybrid that's even close to that really are some of the supercars like the LaFerrari and the Porsche 918 that are years old now. And of course the Acura, which is a current production car. It's not as quick, but I mean, really an amazing car starting just over $100,000. And, I just think it's an amazing vehicle. I was super excited to read all about that one.
Yeah, it's fun to follow all the manufacturers because GM's not the only one that is attacking the problems that EVs have in terms of battery life and battery capability and charging and all that kind of thing. I see that Mazda is resurrecting their rotary engine, using a single rotor engine that does not drive any of the wheels. It just keeps the battery charged. And I think that's a fascinating new front on the whole EV war in terms of technology.
Well, if you think about it, Bob, a lot of the EVs have been doing something similar. They call them range extenders, right? Where it doesn't actually doesn't go into the drivetrain. It just charges the battery. I think the little BMW, that little smart car looking BMW thing, has a similar range extender. But I was totally excited. I forgot about that. I owned several RX-7s. I say several. I owned a coupe and a convertible.
Nobody's counting.
Back in the day, a coupe and a convertible back in the day. And I loved that car with that super crazy high RPM. And it was really sad to think that it was going away. Look, there were so many problems with the rotary engines. They didn't, they were bad on emissions, bad on fuel economy. But if you put it in this, think about this kind of engine, what it's doing. It can sit there and get to its optimum RPM and stay there, because all it's doing is charging the battery. And it's kind of a cheating way to get the rotary engine back into production cars, but I'll take it. I was very excited to see that. But Bob, we only got a couple minutes left, but you had a couple of stories in here about one of them was about the Dakar Rally. Christian Loeb.
Yeah, I mean, it just finished last week. Spectacular as always, although not as spectacular as it once was. Back in my Motor Week Illustrated days, the Dakar Rally started in Paris with a spectacular show of fireworks and whatnot, and the field would drive to Gibraltar and then be ferried across to North Africa and then race all over North Africa until that became just too dangerous. So they took it to South America for a while, and now it's in Saudi Arabia, but it is still spectacular. And this year was no exception. More Americans involved, running motorcycles, cars, trucks, these massive support trucks that actually run in the race. Nasser El-Attiyah, who I know from my Extreme work on Fox, won for the 5th time. But behind him, Sebastian Loeb, the 9-time World Rally Champion and 4-time winner, I think, of the Dakar Rally, got delayed by an hour or more early in the race. So he had no hope of winning it. So he just went like stink and won a record 7 of the 13 stages, including 6 in a row. So it was just spectacular, as always. And that's now in the books. The Rally Monte Carlo, as I mentioned, is now in the books. Congratulations to Sebastian Ogier for Toyota, the entire Toyota team. His teammate finished second in the event. And that's kind of the kickoff to the whole racing season. Now we have the 24 hours. Let's not forget the Chili Bowl, another spectacular indoor midget racing. I mean, hundreds of cars and a great final feature race. Man, we're in it up to our necks now. Thank goodness.
Well, it is fun. I'm really fired up for the Rolex next week. We didn't get to talk about the possible Saudi Arabia public fund where they were bidding on Formula One, and we didn't get to, but we'll talk about that next week. But we're out of time, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to our guests, and we'll talk to you next Sunday night.
Ciao, y'all.